So this video is for my cousin, Erica, who told us that she watches all the videos, and that's great, but that because she's from Canada and there aren't a lot of narrowboats over there, a lot of the terminology and everything is a little lost.
She doesn't know what the hell we're talking about.
Doesn't have the slightest clue.
But she still watches, so
yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching. It's great. We should probably do the ABCs of narrowboating.
We thought we'd do a bit of an explanation of some of the terminology that we've learnt and now assume that everyone else knows what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And often we get it wrong and we get told off for using the wrong words.
And some of these will be pretty basic, possibly, and others will be tangentially related.
And depending how long we talk for, this will probably be 2 or 3 videos.
Might be.
Yeah, no doubt we'll, in our ABC, we'll have missed some words out.
Right, we're going to go through the ones that kind of came to us. A is for aft. The aft is the rear of the boat. It's pretty simple. It's backwards. Jojo sometimes gets confused as to which end is backwards, but backwards is where the bedroom is in our boat. Backwards is very simply wherever the engine is.
It's because I call it the back door, the front door, and the front door, the back door.
Yeah, people get confused on this fact. But the back door is the one at the back of the boat, the aft.
Okay, anode.
An anode is a piece of metal that is welded or bolted to different points on the boat's hull under the water to protect it from essentially electrical action inside the water due to chemistry. Will eat away at the steel hull.
We've got 4, but next time we pull the boat out to black it, we might add another 2.
What's known as sacrificial anodes, and they just protect the boat from...
So if anything's going to rust, they'll rust rather than the hull. Yeah.
A is for alternators. An alternator is a thing that attaches to your engine and generates direct current electricity. Aqueduct.
An aqueduct is basically the canal going over...
Typically it's going to be water, like a river,
or
it's going to be a railway, or going to be a road.
Yeah, it could be a valley.
Yeah.
So it's basically...
a bridge upon which you sail a boat. Although, here's the odd thing. An aqueduct originally was a means by which you transported water, not by which you transported yourself on the water. Aqueducts were made by the Romans and Greeks. They didn't have narrowboats.
So that's all our A's. If we've missed any, let us know. So there's quite a few B's. So berth.
Berth. A berth is where you
sleep.
It's a bed. So technically, a berth is also an individual mooring. Can be known as a berth if you're in a marina.
So our boat has got 2
berths.
Well, 2 permanent berths. And where we're sitting can also convert into 2 berths.
There are berths for 4 people on this boat.
2 permanent, 2
not so permanent.
So, bilge.
The bilge. The bilge is, well, a bilge basically is any place on the boat low down in which water or other fluids, if allowed to accumulate in the boat, will accumulate there. It's like the lowest place where it can go to.
It's a very nice word, is it? Bilge.
No, it's not a very nice word.
Yeah.
In the case of these boats, narrowboats, the bilge that is of consequence is the one in which your bilge pump sits, and that is basically the place in the engine bay. The engine's the heaviest thing in the boat, so it's also the lowest place in the boat. It's why the back of the boat is sort of sitting further down. So the bilge is basically a place in which water and fluids can collect. There are normally actually 2 bilges in a narrowboat. One is the bilge, the sort of main bilge in the engine room where extra water can collect, and then there is the engine sump bilge directly underneath the engine, which is actually a separated compartment in most boats where oil and things can fall into. The idea is that you would normally get rainwater in the main bilge, and then your bilge pump would just automatically throw that out. If you started to get too much water in, the bilge pump will kick in and empty it. But you wouldn't want that to happen with anything where there is diesel and oil. So underneath the engine itself, there's kind of a little separated place that can also accumulate. B is also for blacking. Blacking, B is also for bitumen, which is what blacking is often made out of. Blacking is a thick, universally for some reason black paint that is applied to the sides of the boat underneath and at the waterline to protect the hull from basically the chemical action of the water. B is for bottom also. There's some controversy about whether or not you should black the bottom of the boat, the actual bottom plate.
Base plate.
Or base plate, but also a B. There are couple of different forms of blacking these days. There's the bitumen, which is the traditional stuff, which is basically tar. Then there is 2-pack, which is a type of epoxy.
And that lasts a bit longer.
Then there's apparently a couple of things using a new type of stuff called polyurea, which is like a spray-on kind of adhesive. They're saying it could last for like 10 to 20 years. It's a sort of self-healing chemical that if you like scratch it and cut it or tear it and stuff, it actually sort of repairs itself. It's pretty bizarre stuff. With regular blacking, you can just paint it over the existing blacking. You just wash it off with high pressure water. With 2-pack, you have to actually take it back to bare metal, and with the polyurea, you have to like completely take it back to bare metal. Absolutely nothing left. It's got to be sandblasted and bead blasted and stuff. So it's a very expensive thing to do. B is also for bow. The bow is the front of the boat. The portion of the boat that narrows and passes through the water.
The pointy end.
The pointy end.
B is also for bow thruster, and we have a bow thruster.
It's effectively an electric propeller that can be used to push the front of the boat either to the left or the right.
A lot of boats don't have it, and a lot of people think they call us cheats. They think we're cheats because we have one.
But those people don't have draft horses.
So they're cheats too. People also call them a girly button, which I think is really
Sexist.
It's actually really useful. We weren't looking for a boat that had one. Like, it wasn't on our list of must-haves. It wasn't even on our list of would like to have.
Desirable haves. But it turns out they're incredibly useful, especially when reversing. If you're going backwards and you have a bow thruster, you can essentially use it to steer the boat as if you were using a tiller.
And it also comes in really useful if it's like extremely windy or there's a current.
BSS is for the boat safety scheme.
To get your license and insurance, you need to have a BSS.
Current boat safety certificate or boat safety scheme certificate. The BSS or BSC basically involves a inspector that you hire who comes in and checks the boat, and it's once every
4 years.
4 years, I believe. And they check everything from the electrics to the gas to the hull to how your internal heating is done, how your electrics are hooked up, your DIY work, whether or not it's up to par, things like that. Basically, if your boat's going to stay afloat. Mm-hmm. B is also for batteries. They're how you get your electricity. They are a DC power source that sits on the boat, and we fill them with our solar and we fill them with our alternators, and then the batteries give up that power to be used by things like our light or our computer.
Okay. C.
So C is for cratch cover. The cratch cover and the cratch board are two pieces which operate together at the front of the boat. We don't actually have one installed.
We have one. The boat came with one, but we immediately took it out because the cratch board sits like at the front of the bow, and then there's a joining piece that goes across the top. So as soon as you step out of our stairs, you hit your head on the cratch board. And
especially if you're tall enough.
And so we just decided to take it off for the summer, and we haven't put it back on. Like, a lot of people like them and want them, and it's an extra room because it's warmer and it's dry, so your bow becomes like a storage area. But we haven't really missed it. You know, when you come to locks and you're mooring and you're jumping on and off the boat, it's useful to be able to get on and off the front while the other person's steering. And with the cratch cover on, it was going to be much harder. So, I mean, now we probably could do with just getting on and off the back. Like,
on the narrow canals.
Most of the time we could do that, but I don't know. Like I said, we don't miss it. So if anyone wants to buy a cratch board and a cratch cover.
C is also for continuous cruiser, or CC.
That's what we are.
A continuous cruiser is somebody who has no home mooring and is continuously cruising.
There's a few rules that you have to follow to be a continuous cruiser in terms of how far you travel and how
Which
long...
is an undefined distance, but it's some distance.
And, well, the how long you moor is also for people with home moorings. So.
Yeah. No, the continuous cruising thing is mainly about how far you travel and the fact that you are continuing to travel. Also, C is for controversial. C is also for Keller Gas. Keller Gas is a brand name.
So we have 2 gas tanks at the front of our bow in a little hatch, and we use that gas exclusively for cooking.
Yeah, and it's basically propane. It's LPG.
We used 1 tank from mid-May when we got the boat to mid-October,
It's not cheap, but it lasts for quite a long time.
There's 2 bottles so that when one runs out,
You switch over to the other one.
you don't have to suddenly find a marina
Yeah.
halfway through cooking your dinner.
C is for canal. The canal is the thing in which your boat sits
Most of the time, unless it's on a river.
or something has gone horribly wrong. The canals are basically sections of waterway where a man-made trench has been dug in order to allow water to flow from one point to another. They're controlled by the locks, which we'll get to later.
And other things.
And other things. Yeah, quite a few other things. There's whole
Pumps and
weirs and all sorts of stuff. There's a whole technology that goes into it. But basically, a canal is a ditch or
a
trench
cut.
that
Also
has
called the
been
cut.
cut. It's also called a cut that has
Which
been
also begins with C.
also begins with C. That has literally been cut into the earth, and then they fill the sides with what is called puddling clay.
So there's some canals which are contour canals, and they basically follow the height of the land, and they contour around. And others which are more direct, and they'll just go through, up, down.
Yeah, and basically it comes down to the money that the company that made the canal. Most of these companies were in the 18th century and 19th century, and sometimes it made, in fact most of the time, it made the most economic sense to build along the contours. Where they ran into places where that wasn't economically feasible, or some other, physical barrier, like, the rivers and things like that, then they might have to put in more of like a lock flight in which there are...
Or a tunnel.
Or a number of different types of... Basically, a canal is essentially a man-made railway for boats. There are portions which are not man-made. They are connected by canals. The Canal and River Trust, or CRT, or C&RT. The Canal and River Trust is a...
Charity?
Also begins with a C, that manages the canals, basically. They took over from British Waterways.
5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years ago. They are the largest of the legal entities that manage canals. There are other canals like the Way, where we started, which was managed by the National Trust.
And the Basingstoke.
And the Basingstoke, which is managed by
Surrey and Hampshire.
Surrey and Hampshire councils. The majority of the canals are with the Canal and River Trust. The majority of the rivers are with the EA, or Environment Agency. There's a few other smaller ones, but the CRT is
and basically
who you're normally talking about when you're talking about, the people who administer the canal.
They have a responsibility for the boats, the licensing, the waterway.
They repair the locks thing. They maintain the swing bridges, lift bridges. They have a very large amount of historical properties on the canals that are used for various things, including museums and things like that. They're basically a really big
Charity.
They're a charity.
There's differing views about the CRT. Let's just leave it at that. Okay, D.
D is for Dutch barge.
So as well as narrowboats and wide beams, we have Dutch barges that use the canals and rivers.
Yeah, they're another somewhat less common form of boat.
They look really nice.
They do look really nice. They come in a lot of different sort of widths and shapes and everything. They're actually called the Dutch barge because they are barges from the Dutch.
Was the idea brought over, or were they actually brought over?
There are a lot of boats. You'll see quite a large number of older. We have actually passed quite a few much older wooden boats that are original Dutch barges. They've actually been brought over.
They have a really distinctive shape.
They tend to be enclosed front and back, and then they have a wheelhouse. And so instead of controlling them with a tiller at the back of the boat where you like manually turn a tiller, you turn a wheel and that turns the tiller. And they're a style of boat that is still being built.
I'd love to go inside one.
Yeah. They do have a very interesting
sloping ceilings or whatever, and you just can't imagine what it's like inside.
Yeah.
D is also for dinette, and we are sitting at a dinette, and it's basically a fixed table with fixed chairs.
In this one, which is called a Pullman's dinette, it has the additional property of this table can come up. There's a piece of metal that is holding up this table like a pole. You take the pole out, you put this back down between these two seats, and you can put cushions on top of it, turn it into a bed.
You rearrange the cushions. I think that's really common.
It is, but that's the Pullman's dinette. There
but
are
you can
also
also get the L shape and they convert into a bed as well.
yeah, and there are also dinettes that are fixed that don't convert.
Well, what's the point of that?
I'm not really sure.
Quite often they're raised up as well, so we like step up into ours. And for ages I didn't know why, but when we were looking at boats, someone did clarify for me that it's so you can actually see out the window because the window's at this height.
And the other thing that it does is it provides some storage. Underneath the seats is storage, and underneath that little platform that the whole thing is raised up on, there's storage. D is also for dog.
Every boat needs a dog.
Ours is down there. We see quite a few boats that people will pass with dogs on the roof. You see dogs on the bow, you see dogs on the rear. Ours is normally on the canal side with my wife walking along.
He does ride on the back, he does ride on the front, but he's happiest running along the towpath.
He is happiest on the towpath.
D is also for day boats.
It's a specific kind of hire boat, which is normally at a 45-degree angle and moving too fast.
We're being mean, but we've seen lots of people responsibly using their day boats, but
We've seen some people responsibly using their day
but
boats
we've also seen day boats at full throttle with
backwards.
a massive wake. Yeah.
With absolutely no idea what they're doing, and literally drunk at the time that they're
And
doing.
we've called the hire people to tell them, and they've said, "Oh, we'll have a word with them when they get back." It's too late when they get back. Phone them up now.
Yeah, they're already ramming people.
Okay, so let's end that video here because we've been talking for a long time. So that wasn't the ABC of narrowboating, it was the ABCD of narrowboating. And maybe one day we'll finish the rest of the alphabet.
Yeah.
So I hope that was useful, Erica. This was just for you.
Have fun, kiddo. More to come later. Okay, should we go ahead?
Yeah.
Even with the dog going.
Yeah, let's wait for the dog to finish his dinner. Do you think we need a theme tune?
I thought you meant something like, now on Gilligan's Isle. And I'm like, what is it? I couldn't, I mean, you know, we're on a boat, we could sink at any moment. It's like, you said, do we need a theme tune? And the first thought through my head was, was literally like the Professor and Mary Ann.
I don't know what Gilligan's Island is.
Oh, good Lord. It's like an old show. Like,
I'm not that old, though, am I?
that's true. You're not that old. All right. Yeah, my cousin, who
Sit back.
apparently I have to sit back, who also gives me orders.
Yeah, just like a bit of an a bit of a, George, be quiet.
He's not going to be quiet. I'm just going to turn that off. Just going to disable his sound maker.
We thought we'd do a bit of an explanation.
Dog. But we're going to miss quite a bit of words, no doubt.
Yeah, so no doubt everyone...
Dog want ball.
Dog won't play ball.
Dog want play ball.
We don't play ball in the
We
house.
don't play ball in the house.
So that's all our A's. If we've missed any, let us know, and then we'll feel shame and we won't do anything about it.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, the dog just put his ball on my knee and slobbered sufficiently on it for it to be wet.
My shoulder's killing me.
So, Bilge.
Thanks for the sympathy.
I have much sympathy. H is for hen party. We'll get to that later. It is also the portion that normally is where you're going. And it is also the sound a dog makes.
No, it's not.
Sometimes. Bow wow.
And basically it's, what is it?
B is also for the BSS, or Boat Safety Certificate.
I hadn't finished with bow thrusters.
We hadn't finished with bow thrusters? Oh, there's something more to be said about bow thrusters. B is also for BSS, or Boat Safety Certificate.
No, how can BSS be for boat safety certificate? BSC's for boat safety certificate.
What's BSS then?
Boat safety scheme.
Boat Safety Scheme. Sorry. BSS is for the Boat Safety Scheme.
You're expecting me to edit that out. I'm sorry, not going to.
It's somebody who has a license to
It's not a different license.
drive,
It's just a normal license.
not to kill. Yeah. And Calor, C-A-L-O-R, is basically the seeming monopoly company that just does all the gas. So it just gets called Calor in the same way, though slightly differently, that vacuum cleaners in Britain are called Hoovers.
Does that not happen in America?
No.
You don't do the hoovering?
No, we do the vacuuming.
Mm.
Hoovering is also rude. From like Amsterdam and Holland, you know, wherever the Dutch are from. Anyway, they're not from Amsterdam, are they?
Yeah.
Are they? Yeah. They're not from Belgium. Anyway, Holland.
Netherlands.
The Netherlands. That's the one. That's the word I was looking for. Anyway, the Low Countries, where people are often high.